have been an entrepreneur my entire life. I've paid for everything that I've had in my life since I've been 17 years old. I wanted to tell you that when I started my handyman business, I was just looking to make $3.50 an hour because the contractor that I was working for had temporarily run out of work, which is a commonplace occurrence. And I just wanted to make $3.50 an hour. So I had my brother, who is now a cardiothoracic surgeon in San Antonio, but I had my brother pass out these circulars at 2 cents a piece. He would hand out 100 circulars, and I would end up getting 6 jobs. Well, the first 6 jobs I had, I made about $3.50 an hour, which was terrific because I was my own boss, and you know what? This was working out. This was okay. Well, along comes the 7th job. And the 7th job, this guy wanted rocks spread out over his whole yard. And I thought that I could work all day Saturday, all day Sunday. I figured 11-hour days. I figured 22 hours, so it's $80. Do the math, I hope that works out. But I said $80. And I showed up on Saturday morning at 7 o'clock to do the job. And at 10:30, I was done. And I am thinking, holy cow, what am I going to do? This is like $22 an hour? I mean, I'm going to have to refund the guy his money. Hey, I was done with the rocks. There's only so much you can do with rocks. And the guy walks out, and he said, I see you're done. And I go, yeah, I'm done. He hands me the check for $80. I remember looking at that check thinking, this is the American way. And all of a sudden, I started valuing my time at $5 an hour instead of $3.50. And within a couple of months, I started valuing my time at $7.50 an hour, which was kind of a market top. But anyway, I started my own business. I always made good by the promises that I made. I always did a little bit more for people than I said I would, and I made just as many mistakes as anybody, but I just made good on those mistakes. And that business did grow to employ over 1,000 people. Electrical, mechanical, plumbing, pipe fitting. Really, I think it's the American dream come true. I sold that business in 1999. No one lost their job, and they're doing better than ever. I think that it's an experience that not everyone can take part in, but having taken part in it, I do understand a lot of what goes into business. Selling that business allows me to do this as a full-time, unpaid job. I am also an athlete. I've been an athlete my entire life. I remain a competitive athlete at 59 years old. That might be an oxymoron. But one of the events that I did was the Leadville 100-mile run. And in that event, you had to finish the event in 30 hours. My claim to fame in doing the event was that I was just in good enough shape to not have to train to run 100 miles, that I could just show up and do it. So I showed up to do it. And I got to it was an out and back course, low altitude 10,000 feet, high altitude 13,000 feet. But I got to mile 44, which started a long 6-mile descent, and my quadriceps were just fried. I was going to have to drop out of the race. It was just so much pain going downhill. I went to mile 50, I ate. I thought about it. I thought, well, I can go back up to what would be mile 56, which started a long 11-mile descent, but at least I'll go to mile 56 and then we'll see what happens. I went to mile 56 and I started the 11-mile descent and I was done. I mean, I just could not go downhill because my quads hurt so bad. It struck me that maybe if I turned around and went backwards, that might work. And I did that, and it was like I had a new set of legs. And so I went that way, so every time there was a downhill, I'd turn around and run kind of backwards. Mile 84 came along, 16 miles to go. There was no forward, there was no reverse. But what are you going to do? Quit with just 16 miles to go? No way! So I did finish, and I finished with 15 minutes to spare. And I think that it epitomizes who I am and what I'm all about. I really don't have any give, and I set goals, and I've learned that life is a journey. It's not a destination. If you make it a destination, you're just destined to fail. I had never been involved in politics prior to running for governor of New Mexico. The Republican Party of New Mexico, I went and I introduced myself to the Republican Party 2 weeks before I announced. What they said was, we like you, we like what you've got to say, we're going to be totally inclusive. We're going to include you in all the debates, we're going to include you in all the gatherings, you can be part of the process, but you just need to know that you'll never get elected governor in a state that's 2-to-1 Democrat. I got elected. How did that happen? I'd like to think that it was based on what I had to say, which was simply, let's run government like a business. Common sense, best product, best service, lowest price. And I got elected. I think I distinguished myself as governor of New Mexico for perhaps, this may be an embellishment, but I may have vetoed more bills than the other 49 governors in the country combined. I vetoed 750 bills. I had thousands of line item vetoes. I said no to billions of dollars worth of government spending. Only 2 of the vetoes were overridden, so it made a huge difference. A huge difference. I said no to laws that, in my opinion, weren't going to make me or anybody any safer, any healthier, that it was just going to cost me and everybody else more time and more money to have to comply with these laws. And I vetoed that. And I always had a veto message. My favorite bill that I vetoed was a Republican bill that would have become law in New Mexico but for my signature. It was a dog and cat exercise bill. On my desk for signature, requiring pet stores to exercise their dogs and cats 2 hours a day, 3 times a week. Now, I always gave a veto message. Always. And what I said was, this is a terrific idea. This is a terrific business practice that pet store owners should embrace. But if I sign this legislation, the next thing I'm going to have to do is fund the dog and cat exercise police. Because that's where all this stuff goes, and I vetoed that legislation. They did a study, they came out with a poll of all the presidential candidates and their favorabilities in their own states. There was only one presidential candidate that was viewed favorably in his or her state, and that was me. So the verdict on all of these vetoes, the verdict on less government was, I got reelected the second time by a bigger margin than I did the first time. I jokingly say, but it's true. People in New Mexico actually wave at me with all 5 fingers, not just one. And the only candidate advocating abolishing the Internal Revenue Service. I'm the only candidate advocating eliminating the income tax and corporate tax and replacing all of that with a 1 federal consumption tax. I am embracing the fair tax, which, if you're not familiar with it, check it out. I think it's really the blueprint to no taxes, but it is really the blueprint for American jobs, because with a 0 corporate tax rate environment, if the private sector doesn't create tens of millions of jobs, what does it take to create tens of millions of jobs? If American manufacturing if manufacturing worldwide doesn't flock to the United States, I don't know what it takes to do that. The fair tax is really the answer when it comes to American goods and services for export.
making them arguably 23% more competitive. You're going to bleed out, let me use as an example a can of Coke. A can of Coke that sells for $1 arguably has 23% embedded tax, non-transparent tax in that Coca-Cola, and Coke is passing that on to you when they sell it for $1. If you take all those taxes away, Coke doesn't have to sell the can of Coke for $1 anymore to make the same profit. They can sell it for 80 cents. And they will, because we do have a free market economy, exempting healthcare from free market. But they will be able to sell that can of Coke for 80 cents, apply the consumption tax, which is 23%, ends up costing the same. So our American goods and services, when we export those American goods and services, they cost 23% less to export. When we import anything that's imported, will be subject to the consumption tax, which will apply to all new goods and services. Right now, the country is in deep, deep trouble. And we're kidding ourselves to think anything else. There are only going to be 3 candidates on the ballot in all 50 states. This is very significant. Barack Obama, Mitt Romney, and me, Libertarian candidate for president. I am the only candidate that doesn't want to bomb Iran. I'm the only candidate that wants to get out of Afghanistan tomorrow and bring the troops home. And by the way, I am outraged by politicians that beat their chests and say that we need to fight terrorism wherever that exists, and that comes at a cost of innocent people in those countries dying, and it comes at a cost of our men and servicewomen coming back in body bags or coming back with their limbs blown off, and that outrages me. I'm the only candidate that wants to repeal the Patriot Act. I'm the only candidate that would not have signed the National Defense Authorization Act for arrest and detainment of you and I as U.S. citizens without being charged. That's why we fought wars in this country. I'm the only candidate that is talking about marriage equality from the standpoint of it being a constitutionally guaranteed right on par with civil rights of the 60s. I am the only candidate that wants to end the drug war. Let's start by legalizing marijuana. I'm the only candidate, I think, that's talking about immigration from a realistic standpoint. And that realistic standpoint is let's make it as easy as possible for somebody that wants to come into this country and work to get a work visa. Not a green card, not citizenship, but a work visa. I am the only candidate that is promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013, and that is a $1.4 trillion spending reduction in federal government now, believing that if we don't address this, now, we're going to find ourselves in the midst of a monetary collapse. And what's a monetary collapse? It's when the money that we have in our pocket doesn't buy a thing because of the accompanying inflation that is going to go along with borrowing and printing money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar we're spending. So that means reforming the entitlements. That means reforming Medicaid and Medicare. It means reforming Social Security, but no benefits. Social Security is a problem that is just pale in comparison to Medicare. I think, speaking with a broad brushstroke, I think the majority of Americans are fiscally responsible and socially accepting. I put myself in that category. The ACLU came out with a report card on all the presidential candidates in December. Whether you like the ACLU or dislike them, I think they are a group dedicated to the Constitution of the United States. I think they're dedicated to civil liberties. I think they're dedicated to the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. So they came out with a report card on all the presidential candidates. 24 liberty torches was a perfect score. I think this is important. Mitt Romney and Rick Santorum had 0 liberty torches out of 24. Newt Gingrich had 4 liberty torches out of 24. President Obama had 16 liberty torches out of 24. Ron Paul had 18 liberty torches out of 24. And Gary Johnson had 21 liberty torches out of 24.